Let's move forward, thinking about costs and benefits to thinking. Let's move forward to thinking about costs and benefits of actions and other issues that we have to worry about when we have to make analyses of these things for avoiding the tragedy. I have trouble with this bloody screen somehow. Okay, sorry about the cursing. Costs and benefits. So here is a cop monitoring speeding and writing a ticket, which is a good cost benefit analysis situations. To evaluate the outcomes of actions taken in the action situation, we have to look at the costs and benefits. These costs and benefits accumulate over time. Not all the participants will experience the same costs and benefits. Sometimes the positions that participants hold affect their cost and benefits since it affects the compensation, penalties, fees, rewards, and opportunities. A physician receives a monetary benefit from doing a treatment, while the patient will pay to receive an improvement in their health condition. Right? So you always complain about the high bills, but how do you value your health? Even if participants hold the same position, like players on a sports team, the rewards vary as defined by their individual contracts. If we study action arenas, we need to make a distinction between the physical outcome and the valuation that a participant assigns to that outcome. In economics, the value assigned by participants is often referred to as utility. What is its utility to you in your own perception? Individual utility is a summary measure of all the net values to an individual of all the benefits and costs of the outcomes of a particular action situation. Utility might increase with an increase in profit, but depending on the study at hand, it may also include elements like joy, shame, regret, and guilt. Okay, so these are non-market goods which are valued by different people, by different participants in different ways. Uh, Also, often people think of opportunity costs. If you have a certain amount of money and you have a flight and you want to take business class because it's more comfortable, you can afford it, you will take it. But many who can afford it will not take it because they think that's a waste of money compared to the time of travel, etc. Is a 14-hour flight worth paying much higher price for business class or not? So it depends on how you value your comfort, your joy, your opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is basically if you don't take the business class but you end up not spending that money on anything else, then you have just lost the comfort for those hours. Okay. For example, driving above the speed limit can save you time. However, if you are caught, you will have to pay a traffic fine, as you see here. You may challenge a ticket by appearing in court, yet this will take time and may have other costs associated with it. Paying the fine or accepting guilt for the traffic violation could also result in higher car insurance and accumulate points on your driving record. It's meant to do that to prevent you from speeding habitually. If you accumulate too many points on your driving record, your license may be suspended. Not paying a ticket in time will lead to additional penalties. So the cost-benefit analysis in this situation is very straightforward, but if there is joy, shame, and regret and guilt are involved, then obviously it's much more difficult, right? Think of shoplifting. I hope you are not shoplifting, but you may benefit by shoplifting if you don't get caught, but if you get caught, it's an offense. You may have misdemeanor or whatever, but it's a big shame and guilt if you're the guilty type. If you have a guilt feelings at all. Linking action situations. In reality, people make decisions in different action situations that are often linked together. Rarely do action situations exist entirely independently of other situations. For example, new laws in the US need to be approved by the Congress and the Senate before the President may sign it. Signing a bill is meaningless unless the bill has successfully passed through the Congress and Senate action arenas. So the president cannot sit and sign whatever he wants or she wants. Of course, there are executive actions which they can sign, but they can be repealed by the Congress and so on. Given the importance of repeated interactions to the development of a reputation for reciprocity and the importance of reciprocity for achieving higher levels of cooperation, better outcomes over time, individuals have a strong motivation to link situations. So if you are seen as a trustworthy person with repeated interactions, then you are trusted more in another situation as well. So reciprocity there is very important. Action situations can be linked through organizational connections. Within larger organizations, what happens in the purchasing department affects what happens in the production and sales department, and vice versa. Sometimes action situations are structured over time. For example, a tournament or sport competition is a description of how players, or for example in tennis, or teams, for example in basketball, will proceed through a sequence of action situations. In other examples, action situations are not formally linked. So to go from one round to the next, there may be elimination, there may be round robin, so everybody plays, everybody collects points, and so on. So there are rules in which the players are moving forward. So action situations are structured in that sense, which you know a priori. In other examples, action situations are not formally linked. Farmers who have successful innovative practices in deriving better profits are frequently copied by others. This is the mental model. Some experience will tell you that even if a farmer is doing well, let's say with agroforestry as opposed to normal agriculture with no tree-based cultivation, the other farmer may think, I will wait and see how long he or she can continue to benefit from agroforestry. So the mental model determines whether you copy quickly or not. In general, human beings are likely to copy, and this is one of the theories of how cooperation may have evolved. If you want to avoid someone copying from you, you just collaborate so that you are working together and benefiting together instead of competing with each other. Another way in which action situations can be linked is through different levels of activities. We can distinguish 3 levels of rules that cumulatively affect the actions taken and the outcomes obtained. Operational rules directly affect the day-to-day decisions made by participants in any settings. These can change relatively rapidly from day to day. Collective choice rules affect operational activities and results through their effects in determining who is eligible to be a participant and the specific rules to be used in changing operational rules. These change at a much slower pace, not at the day-to-day time scale. Constitutional choice rules first affect collective choice activities by determining who is eligible to be a participant and the rules to be used in crafting the set of collective choice rules that in turn affect the set of operational rules. Constitutional choice rules change at the slowest pace. An example of an operational level situation is a group of fishers who decide where and when to fish. At the collective choice level, the group of fishers may decide on which seasons or locations to implement bans on fishing. In India, monsoons are banned for safety reasons as well. At the constitutional choice level, decisions are made regarding the conditions required in order to be eligible for membership in the group of fishers. Okay, so you can see which one can change rapidly. The choice of when and where to fish can change rapidly, but other two change more slowly. Okay, so here are different situations, different levels of rules related to a university class. So day-to-day assignments, syllabi are approved by the committee sitting here. University Senate approves new degrees. Upper administrations make decisions that have university-wide impacts, such as tuitions, dress codes, etc. Okay, so what are the outcomes here? It is difficult to predict the outcomes of rule changes made in action situations. Changing the rules in one action situation may have consequences in other action situations. The difficulty of predicting the consequences of changes shows that we have to closely observe what is happening before the rules are changed and after the rules are changed. This suggests that we should view policy experiments and closely observe these experiments in order to learn and have a better understanding of what will happen in a similar case in the future. So you have knowledge gaining and experience in one situation that you want to transfer to another situations to avoid making the same mistakes or on improving the effectiveness and so on. Besides the difficulty of predicting outcomes, how to evaluate outcomes is also often not immediately evident. There are different criteria that one can use to evaluate the outcomes. Economic efficiency, what are the costs relative to the benefits? Equity, how are costs and benefits distributed among the participants? Accountability, are participants in leadership positions accountable for the consequences of their decisions? This is especially tricky for politicians who are very smart at not taking responsibility, but they have to make decisions, they have to win elections, so often we ride hard on the politicians, but you have to see their position as well. Conformance to general morality. Are the procedures fair? Is cheating detected? And are promises kept? Sustainability. How do the outcomes evolve over time? And what are the consequences of decisions on the underlying systems? So that brings us towards the commons that we are worried about. In order to evaluate the outcomes, one needs to evaluate trade-offs associated with the different criteria. If some groups are affected differently than others, it will be important to define procedures in the collective choice or constitutional choice rules to address such differences. For example, the outcome of changing the criteria for student loans will not have the same consequence for each individual student. It would be important to consider the different types of outcomes for different types of participants and develop agreements regarding how to evaluate such outcomes. Of course, here in this action situations, students are not a monolithic entity. If there are 1,000 students, there may be 100 different situations or types of students, but you obviously cannot set up criteria to account for all the situations or all types of students. So you begin to have economic classes, racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, and so on to make a certain number of rules, right? So critical reflections, the concept of action arenas was the main topic of this chapter. Let me have a sip of tea here. An action arena consists of an action situation that defines the structure of the interactions, actions, and outcomes, and the individuals, organizations, or nations who may participate in the action situation. When two or more participants interact, there is an action arena where participants hold positions and can make decisions. Not everybody in an action situation can take the same actions or has the same level of information. The consequences of the actions are the outcomes of the action situation, which can be evaluated differently by each participant in the action situation. These are, of course, days where you can seek information and gather information using various sources like internet, Google, etc. So you may have advantage over others, and you may be gathering information to in fact gain advantage over other participants. So that's not the kind of information we are talking about. We are talking about available information made available to all and made aware that they have this information available, and what are the asymmetries in those situations. Make yourself think. What positions do you hold in different action situations? Maybe a student listening to me, or maybe a teacher who's gaining some additional knowledge from watching my podcast. Thank you if you are doing that, and so on. Provide some examples. What is an action situation you experience regularly? What are the possible outcomes in this situation? What actions can you take? Be sure to distinguish between actions you may take and choices that you do make. It may depend on your mental model, on which path you take to work. Some may be very adamant about choosing the same route every day. Some may be very keen on taking public transportation and not driving. Some may ride a bike. And those are actions you can take, but what are the choices you actually make? Do you have an example from your own personal experience where you have experienced the same action situation but with different participants that led to a different action arena and a different outcome? So your choices in this action situation and action arena is always dyadic, so that there are at least two people involved. So taking a bike or not, and taking a public transportation or not, taking the same route or not, is not seen as an individual action, but let's say it's related to meeting the class attendance requirement or a timing requirement, or lessening the traffic, lessening the global warming environmental impact, and so on. Okay, so let me leave at that without confusing you more, but I hope you get the idea. Okay, so this chapter is concluded. As you can see, each chapter is very nice and brief, but some will get longer than the others as we go forward. So we'll come back and look at social dilemmas and so on in the next chapter. Okay.